Hello, hello. So I'm basically going to speedrun a rig to show the bare basics. This is a model that I made for practice forever ago, and I barely used her, so I figured I'd put her to use. So right off the bat, we're just going to go ahead, grab all of that, and we're going to do auto standard mesh. Just because that's the easiest thing to do. If you're doing fancier stuff, you need fancier meshes, but we're not doing that. So next thing you're going to want to do is make sure everything's in good folders for organizing. We will go ahead. You can change the draw order if you need to for anything. We want that to be in the back, but we want it to be with the bangs. So we're going to put those in a folder together. Just call it hair. Just for keeping things organized. These should go with the head. Technically go behind the head, and then we'll keep the body by itself. I'll let the brows probably be in a thing as well. Usually when I have it ready to go, the PSD file has all of it set in good folders, but sometimes you have to rearrange stuff just due to draw order. So I have my mouth, nose, eyes, hair. This is head. So then I usually go ahead and organize my parameters. So I have my angles. I usually end up deleting the cheek parameter. I believe that is if you want them to blush. I don't know if I think it's usually associated with smiling in certain, like in PRPR Live or VTube Studio. I think that's what it's usually, but I don't do it, especially if I'm on the free version. I now currently have the paid version, but I use the free version for a lot of stuff. This one doesn't have any side hair, so I'm going to go ahead and delete that. But if you have different types of hair, so I've had a model in the past that had, so like the bangs in the front, you had the back hair, and then they had some hair on the side as well. I just kind of gave it a 3D effect. That's when you'd want to use the side hair. This model doesn't have it though. And a lot of models typically just have the front and the back. And then the breathing is the breathing, I guess. I kind of leave that in its own. So we're going to start with the angle X. So we want to go ahead and create some of our parameters. I always start off by doing the head for the angle. So I just go and get rid of quite literally everything. And we're going to get rid of the ears because I don't feel like modeling ears right now. No. Nope, we are going to do the ears. I lied. So for the head, you're going to go ahead and create your warp deformer. It's warp deformer of head, and you want to say XY at the end, just so you remember which one it is. It does not want to create it. All right, we're back after technical difficulty. Let's try that again. So we're just going to do just the head. Deformer of head, XY. Create. There we go. Now it's working. So now we're going to do this. We're going to add our 3 deformers. So we're going to have the looking to the right. Usually I kind of just do almost a 3D effect here. And you can be more specific and have it have a form to it. There's a lot of great resources like pictures that you can find that show different how the face looks in different directions. I don't remember where I got this one, to be perfectly honest. I got it on Twitter. I think I have it saved somewhere. But there's a whole bunch of references you can use. This, I'm just kind of going to be eyeballing it to get an idea. Then we want to kind of move the chin as well a bit. And I can kind of squish it a bit. Now they look like they're looking to the right. And since I have a symmetrical model, you reflect the motion, boom, you have your X. And then I usually do both X and Y for the same part at the same time. So we're going to go ahead and do the Y. So this is the looking up. So if I pull up my reference, you usually don't, with the V2 models, don't look up this far. So kind of just like this. You don't do a lot to the face shape. You can kind of flatten out the chin. If you have more layers with different lines, you can make the lines disappear, make it a 3D effect. There's certain games out there that are great references to use for trying to get this 3D on how to look. So I always kind of go and see. For some reason, this looks like it's going that way. We don't want that. I'm gonna squish that a little bit. Okay, and then looking down, this one you can't really reflect because it's not symmetrical on that axis. And typically there's not a lot to the Y movement. I have seen someone do a weird angle for their model and it gave them a double chin and it was glorious. But most people don't do that. Then you're going to want to go ahead and synthesize the corners. And sometimes they're a bit funky and you might have to go back and change them. But that's the basics of like the head. We are actually going to get rid of the ears because we're kind of focusing on the bare basics. So next we're going to do the eyes. So the eyes here for the X and Y, just go ahead and make a warp deformer with literally everything in it. Just all of these. And you're going to say warp deformer of eyes XY. And you're going to split these up again. Don't worry, it saves all the corners and stuff with the head deformer. So you're going to go ahead and add ear parameter. So now we're looking to the right. So I kind of just move. And if you press shift and you move, it'll keep it on that line. So if I press shift and hold it, I can't, it kind of keeps it. You can see it breaking out. I'm going to undo whatever I just did because I don't know. So it's a good way of keeping things properly aligned. Then I typically go ahead and shrink that eye a bit. And I'll go like that, just a little bit. Then if you want to bring the red box back and you get rid of it, just go ahead and click off and then back on of what you were working on. Okay, so I think we need to go over a little bit more. Go, and then you just go ahead and reflect motion. Voila. An angle Y. So we're looking upwards now. And I like to do almost like a little bit of perspective. Not too much. Like I said, the Y angle, you don't have a lot of movement really. There we go. Now if we want to synthesize the corners, we'll go ahead there. Synthesize corners. So you might need to make some adjustments. Usually I wait until I have everything else because then you have a frame of reference of where stuff is. So we have the eyeballs. Nose is one of the easier things, so we'll go ahead and do him next. Make sure nose XY. I think I'll probably just speed up, at least for this bit. The mouth's going to be very similar as well, so. On a quick thing, if you notice your things are slightly off and you want to set everything back to the default, click on the 3 lines there, reset the default values, and it sets it back. It's very handy to have. Alright, so now you've gotten here with the face. And you might want to go ahead and adjust some things, so like the corners. So for the mouth here, gotta have the skin showing there a bit. And you can actually go and adjust some of that when you do the mouth rigging, because that's going to be, you're going to have a lot of issues with that showing through. If you have, at least if you have it set up like mine, where you have the lips covering there. Let's go ahead and do angle Z. So you're going to take all these warp deformers that you just made, and you can see them over in the deformer window here. So you take all those, and you're going to make a rotation. We're not going to call it browse rotation. I will call it head rotation. Create. So now you're going to want to hold control, and then you can move this bit freely. And I always move it to the base of the head, where the head connects with the neck, more or less. You're going to go ahead and add your 3 points. And you can see the angle here in the inspector window. You can turn it. So I like to turn it, and I move it over a little bit as well. See, now we got Z angle. Reflect the motion. Easy peasy. So then I'm going to go ahead and take the body. I'm going to make a warp deformer for that. I'm just going to say warp deformer. There we go. I try to keep my terminology close to what the default is. Body. It's going to be for the Z. So you're going to make sure you have 2 of the Bezier divisions. Otherwise, it can be a bit awkward. You're going to go ahead and add your Z. That. So I usually take this middle one, move it there. You move this one a bit. Kind of just move them over until it works well. You can move the shoulder over here over just a tiny little bit. I might go ahead and move the head down as well. Yes, I'm going to move the head down on those. Got a head rotation over here in the deformer. Move that down just a tad. Just a tad. Now she moves like this. So a great way of testing if your movement is looking all right. So you have the play button down here. And it kind of does random movements for you, which is fantastic to have. And if you want to get rid of these lines around where the deformers are, you click this button up here. You can kind of see it clear. So this just kind of moves it around at random intervals. If there is a parameter that you don't want to be moved, you can go to settings and you can choose which parameters. So say you don't want the hair moving back and forth randomly, you can adjust it there. We're going to reset her. And another great way of testing. So you open physics. So, modeling, open physics, scene blending settings. And you can see it moving around. If you click and pull around, you can see her moving. You can also go ahead. What I like to do is preview settings of cursor tracking. I like to add my angle Z onto the left mouse button X. Make sure I save it. So now she moves that way as well. So this is another great way of checking. You can also do the random pose here as well. And you'll want to do that later on when you get into the physics. So for a quick hair, which we will do next, put that on her. She's a bit bald right now. All right, let's bring her hair back. So I'm going to go ahead and just put these. Now I'm going to make them their own separate deformers. You can put them in the same one, but if you want things to be more exact, I would recommend putting them in separate ones. Bangs XY. I'm going to do very similar rigging to what we did for the face. I'll get rid of the back hair because we're not working on that right now. Turn that back on. And I like to just kind of move it over slightly. Very similar to how I do the eyes. make sure I keep the bangs centered. So usually I keep the scalp, try to keep it around where it would be on her if she's turning. You do have to be careful if you don't have any side hair. Make sure you don't have any head peeking through like that. You can just kind of move that over. No one has to know. So now you have that side movement. We're going to reflect the motion. Do the angle Y. Do reset, make sure we're perfect there. This I kind of just move that up a bit. For looking up, the hair does go up very slightly. A lot of when you're working on the model, you kind of want to look at yourself in a mirror. When you move your head up, where does your hair go? Especially if the model's based off of yourself, you can kind of see, oh, my hair does this when I look up, and you can kind of copy that. So looking up, her hair is going wonky. We're going to fix that a bit. There we go. Now looking down, I do very similar. I just move the center one. I'll move this guy down a bit too. If you're looking down, your hair will go down a bit. All right, now we're going to put these together. Synthesize the corners. This is definitely where you're going to want to check. Because see how we have this lifting up there, which is not what we want. So, that's not what I want to do. And kind of just go ahead, readjust where you need to. Yeah, because the corners didn't look too good there. So we're just going to do that. Yeah, I'm going to redo slightly what I did here. I should not have done that. Go back to the center. Do that. Re-add it in. We're going to do that again. It's okay if a little bit of that shows because we're going to have the back hair. Should cover that. That is one of the bonuses to having some of the side hair, is it does help cover some of the bits that might look a bit wonky. Alright, she looks good from there. We're going to go ahead and do the Z angle as well for the bangs. So you could, if you have short bangs, add it into the head rotation. However, I like to add just a little bit of gravity to my bangs. So I'll go ahead and do that. I'm going to do look for bangs Z. So do that. Add the parameter. So now we have this. So you kind of want to just actually, no, scratch that. Ignore what I've said. We are adding the bangs to the head rotation. So if you want to do it after you've already made a rotation, so we'll take it out again. Okay, so you see how they're separate? You can just kind of drag it into there. Now, look at that. But we still want to add that gravity. So I want to get bangs. There we go. So we are still going to add to the Z. We're just going to go ahead and move this over. And you can add more Bezier divisions if you say you move this, but you don't want the top to move. So we want some more in the height. So I'm going to do 4. That's width. That's not what I want. There we go. So it kind of gives you a bit more control. With the free version, I don't know how many Bezier divisions you can have. There is a limit. I'm sure there's a limit for the paid version, but it is, you get a lot more. Okay, so that's good. Now we're going to go ahead and do the back hair. angle X. I like to do, so we're going to move this way. Move at the bottom as well. Almost gives it that kind of 3D effect to it. I'm going to reflect that. Make sure it looks all right. Go ahead and add the angle Y. So I like to add, just make it go down a little bit. No, you don't need too much. I got to do the downs. Down. I almost want to angle it as well. Gotta go up a bit. Bring that down. So there we go. I want to synthesize the corners. That actually looks all fine and dandy. We are also going to go ahead and add this to the head rotation, just to make the Z easier. And we are going to go and add a back hair Z. Now if you're using the free version, probably wouldn't do the back hair here because you have limited deformers, and if you have a bigger model, there's more stuff you're going to want to do with it. Well, let's get to default. If we go over this way, we'll just kind of, yeah, just bring some gravity to the hair. Okay. So next, since one of your other problems was getting like the floofiness or the bounce to your hair, we're going to go ahead and do some physics. So hair, here we go. So we have the hair move front and the hair move back. So for the front, since I only have one bang piece, instead of splitting, I could have split it into two. I could have split it into more pieces as well. But we're just going to go with that. So we want to make it easier. So we're going to do of bangs. And we're going to do hair move. I'm going to show you the way that uses more parameters. If you end up not having enough parameters in the end, you might want to back it up and only do one direction for the physics. I've seen tutorials that only do the X direction for physics. I'm going to show you this one X and then two Y directions. So we're going to do the first X direction. So hair move front. I'm just going to actually rename this parameter. Hair move front X. Go ahead and add your keyframes. So this is what when your head moves, basically you're showing it the maximum amount that the hair will move. So if your head moves to the right, you want your hair to go over to the right. We're actually going to add some more Bezier divisions as well here for the height. Just because I don't want to move the top up here too much, but I want a lot of movement in the bottom. And if you're getting really specific with physics and you had a lot of long hair, you can add multiple parameters and multiple deformers for it. But we're going simple, so we're just going to do... And I like to over-exaggerate my physics because you can always adjust that in the physics settings. That way, and then we're going to reflect the motion. So just to show you how this is going to end up working, because I'm going to show you both the X and Y directions, but we're going to do the X first. So we're going to go ahead and add. So I brought up the physics settings again. So we're going to add, we'll name it hair. No, hair X. I'm going to use head input. And I always go for the hair long. Even if you have shorter hair, it gives it more of the physics. Basically, that's the preset for the physics, and you can adjust it more, but I think the hair long is a great go-to. So what it shows here is these are the inputs. So whenever you use angle X, angle Z, body X, and body Z, that's what it's reading for. And then your output, you get to choose which parameter it outputs. So we are doing the hair move front X. So actually, let me show you, before we add that in, here I am moving my head back and forth. There's like not really any physics, no bounce to the hair. So now if we add the hair move front X, should be a little bit. So you see that hair movement there. If you want more, you can adjust the scale. So depending on what I'm doing, sometimes I don't ever really do more than 15 because it can be a lot. Like that's way too much for what we need. The one was actually good. But sometimes it doesn't like it. So now you have kind of the movements. And that'll give a lot of the bounce to your hair. And since you're going to have multiple layers to your hair, what I would do is I would give them each their own parameter and adjust them separately. So then they'll all move separately. I'll kind of show you with the back for the X here. So hair move back. So for your bangs, you're going to have basically bang strand 1, bang strand 2, whatever you want to name them. But I just have the front and the back hair. So we're going to go ahead and get that. So maybe the back doesn't move as much because she has shorter hair in the back. So we only want to move it a little bit when we're going to the right. Move the sides a bit more over. I'm just going to go ahead and reflect the motion. Now, if you don't have a symmetrical model, you can't do the reflection. But most of the time, everyone has symmetrical models. And this is like symmetrical in silhouette. If you have a different design on both sides, you might want to adjust slightly, but you can usually reflect the motion there too. So if we go back to the physics scene blending, so we're still on the hair X. If we go to output, let's go ahead and add the, where is it? Hair move back. So the hair in the back moves, but you can see it kind of moves the same amount as the front. So we can go ahead. Let's do this as a 0.5. So it moves slightly different from the front. And you can reset the whole like output and all that. So right now there's like no, not much. Set magnification as well. So now you got the same thing on both of them. Typically the hair long is the best thing to use even for shorter length hair, because say we put the short length on, import, you see the jiggles, just it's kind of awkward. Long hair just has the right pendulum for it, and it works that well. Now if you're doing physics for other stuff, there's other things. So you have like clothing. If you have longer hair, you can have the pendulum. So when you import that, you have different sections, and you can choose which section your output goes to. But I don't think for the hair that you're going to be using, you're going to want that. So you're going to just do the hair long. So you have those physics. So to add more bounce to your hair, we're going to go ahead and find the hair parameters. There they are. So with the hair move front X, we're going to go ahead and make a new parameter. Hair move front Y1. So Y1 is literally just going to be the up and down. So we're going to go ahead and add the what form of hair. Bangs. Y1 or Y. We're putting them both on. We'll go ahead and add that. So we have the up motion. So that's just kind of a bounce in this way. So now you have your up and down movement. Now you could just stick with that. However, I think adding the Y2 gives it a lot more motion. So we're going to go new parameter, hair move, front Y, Y2, hair move, front Y2. So for this one, this is going to be the in and out. So if you look at the Kira Amori's video, she shows how to do this with breasts. And it's actually, the physics for that works both for hair, breasts, clothing. It works for a lot of stuff. I've used it for a skirt before and it gives it a great effect. Okay, so for the hair coming together, we're going to do the positive. So what I like to do is I'll kind of just grab all of these points and I bring it in a little bit. I'm going to take all of these little points that you have. And everything's going to be kind of... And since I have one single piece, it's a bit hard. If you had the two separate sides, it'd be really easy to do. I'm just lazy and usually leave all my stuff in like one piece. And you want some that make it look like it's poofing out. So I try to think of this parameter as like a parachute. So when a parachute's being dragged against the wind, it kind of puffs out. That's what I think of this parameter as. In and out. You're going to go ahead and connect these. I'm going to synthesize the corners. Doesn't matter if it looks a bit wonky. I don't want it to. So now we're going to go ahead and go into the modeling. So we're going to add a hair Y. And input, head input, and once again doing the hair long because it is the best one. So here you're going to go ahead and change the angle X's to angle Y's. And the body X to body Y. So here we're going to add both the Y1 and Y2. Then I believe you need to reflect the Y2. And we're going to go ahead and move this up a bunch. So I think for this one, we're going to do 10 and 10. So you can kind of see her hair bouncing like it's catching the wind. I mean, we can just kind of just oomph that up just to get a big glance. So that's what really high physics will do. You're not going to want it that high, but that's kind of the idea of what you're going to want to do for the Y parameters. So 10, 15 is kind of about what you're going to want for this. At least that's what seems to work for me. So that'll be your best way of adding kind of the bounce to the hair. I think that's what I'm going to do for now. If there's any other things, because I can go over the eye and the mouth rigging as well. I will say Kira Amori has a fantastic mouth rigging video, and I would check that out. The eyes, I've watched a bunch of different things, and my usual model doesn't have typical eyes, so I have different ways of doing it. But just go ahead and let me know if there's any other questions you got.